Hello everyone on freeCodeCamp today, wanting to learn about low-code. Now, if you're looking to spin up apps fast with out-of-the-box UI components, this is the course for you. My name is Ania and I'm a software developer, YouTube tutorial creator, and your video instructor for this low-code course. In this course, you will learn all about low-code solutions by building 3 financial apps. These apps will be, number 1, a trade dashboard for brokers to log their trades as well as track their commissions, as well as communicate with their back offices via an integrated message sender thanks to Slack API. Number 2 is going to be a crypto dashboard using Coin API service to get live prices, as well as utilizing Twilio's API to send text messages to your friends or family about any changes you see instantly. And 3, an invoice tracker that communicates with an external database using GraphQL API and allows you to embed instructional videos for those using it. Now, these 3 apps might sound intimidating to you if you're not super well versed in using APIs and building up front ends for them, but the whole point of low-code solutions is that it takes the pain out of doing both of these things. Think of low-code as platforms that essentially give you all the UI components you need. So for example, tables, graphs, text boxes, you name it. And then also give the option to integrate them using pre-configured inputs for APIs. This type of solution is perfect for personal trackers on your finances, in-house apps that need to be spun up quickly, or perhaps proof of concept prototypes looking for investment. And that is only the tip of the iceberg. Stick around to the end of the tutorial for the where to go next section to see what other things you can build. So that leads me nicely into what exactly we are going to be covering in this course. In this course, we will look at low code versus no code, setting up Retool, compatible integrations, building a trade dashboard, building a crypto dashboard, building an invoice tracker, and of course, where to go next. Now, the only prerequisite I ask of you before starting is to have a basic understanding of how APIs work before starting this course. Or if you don't know what APIs are but are feeling up to it, please do have a go at following along anyway. I will be taking things super slow and covering everything as we go to make this course as accessible to as many people as possible. Okay, so what are we waiting for? Let's do it. As always, please do hit that sub button as it really does help out this channel in providing you with free courses and tutorials. Your support is really what makes freeCodeCamp what it is today. Let's start with exactly what low-code is. Low-code in the least amount of words is a way for developers to create applications quick with minimal effort. Most low-code platforms allow developers to drag and drop visual blocks of existing code into a workflow to create any application they wish. The main advantages of low-code, apart from it being a huge time saver, is that a developer can just jump right in. To create an app in a business, you don't have to learn what frameworks they are using, how they like to work. You don't need to create a GitHub account even, or create any components. And the best part for me is that you don't have to write any tests for them either. Now that we have covered low-code, how is that different to no-code? Well, as the name would suggest, no-code solutions are for those with zero coding knowledge at all. Simply drag and drop things to create an app, and that's it. And whilst you might be like, oh, well, why don't I just use that? Whilst no-code solutions can be pretty powerful, they are often quite limiting, especially when it comes to wanting to integrate databases. In addition to this, it can result in apps being created without the proper expertise needed to maintain them. So if something goes wrong, for example, or needs to be changed, that is going to be an issue. And not to mention security concerns and compliance issues that could result from that too. All in all, a no-code solution, whilst perfect for building some things, so think like personal projects that don't rely on databases, can end up being a huge headache further down the line when used in a professional setting. For this tutorial, we are going to be using a tool called Retool. So here's the tool we're going to use. It is free to use on a trial basis, and the best part about it is that it comes with all of these fantastic integrations already done for us. So there really is a lot. I'm going to be trying to cover the main ones that I use on a day-to-day basis in this tutorial. So these ones right here. Okay, so I hope you're excited. Let's do it. Okay, so let's get to creating our first app, which is going to be a trades dashboard using the Google Sheets API. So here's what your dashboard should look like once you have signed up to Retool, the low-code platform. And I am just going to create a new app by actually adding a resource first. So I'm just going to gravitate to the resources tab. We're going to start off by connecting the resource that we need. In this case, it's of course going to be a Google Sheet. So let's just gravitate to the resources. And I am going to not use the sample Google Sheets. I'm going to create a new resource, select Google Sheets, and I'm just going to choose to call it, let's just call it trades for now. Please make sure to select the read and write if you plan on adding data from your app to the Google Sheet. If you don't want to read the data, but you want it to be interactive, make sure that this read and write option is selected. And there we go. We of course need to authorize Retool to talking to our Google Sheets. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that by clicking authorize and going through these steps. Okay, wonderful. So now we have connected Retool to our personal Google Sheets by allowing Retool to speak to our Google Drive essentially. So that is done. Now let's get to creating a new app with this resource. So I'm just going to click create a new app now. And let's go ahead and name it. So I'm going to call it Trades Dashboard. Okay, so pretty easy. Trades Dashboard. If I can only spell Trades Dashboard. Okay. And there we go. This is our app. It's got some default stuff here, but don't worry. Let's actually maybe get rid of all this for now. So I'm just going to delete the default query that this comes with and make a new query. Okay, so here we are. Here's essentially a list of all the resources. So all the resources when we are just on the resource tab, including the new resource we made called trades. So I'm just going to select that one. Okay, so now that we have that resource, I'm just gonna maybe make this a little bit bigger. Please make sure the action type is read data from a spreadsheet. So because we want to be, reading the data from our spreadsheet. And of course, we need to tell the platform which spreadsheet we want from our Google Docs. So I know that my spreadsheet is called trades. So I'm just going to select that. But you will see all your Google Sheets essentially here as an option. Okay, and wonderful. If I run this query, you will actually see a preview of all the data. So that is really useful. And the next thing I want to do is actually get that showing in a table. So before we do that, I'm just going to delete this table. And I'm actually going to rename this query to trades, or perhaps get trades. That's a bit better in terms of readability. So get trades. And then I am just going to drag in a table. Now, once you've done this, you will see the table actually uses the data from get trades. So that was really simple. We really didn't need to do much. That is because we are currently on the get trades query. Okay, so it's automatically using that data for us to create this wonderful table based on the query data. Okay. So this looks pretty simple, right? All we've done is drag a table, making sure that we are on the get trades query as we do it. Now, I'm going to show you this little left sidebar as it's super useful. I think it's very powerful when it comes to dealing with more complex, results. And if we now look here at the queries and transformers, you will see the get trade query, of course, but you will also see how this data is returned. So you will see the data comes as an array of objects, okay? And that is what we are using to essentially create the table. It is something that I'm probably more comfortable using in terms of coding, so it can be really useful to you if you are a dev that prefers to work in this type of way. Okay, I think let's move on. The next thing I'm going to show you is actually how to personalize some of these columns. So there's a lot we can do with these columns. For example, let's select the first one. Now, say I know this column, I want it to come in the format of dates, and I want it to be more readable. I can simply select the column type to be a date. And you will see how the timestamp has now changed to have the month, day, and year. So that's just been formatted for me. We can of course do other things. We can filter them. So if you click on the column, it will filter. And then you can also do things such as, change the background color. So I can simply select a column and type in the color red. Of course, you can use hex codes and RGB as well, or you can simply type the term red. The platform is pretty intuitive when it comes to that. Another thing that you can do is, let's maybe look at the price. So if I click on the price column, I can make sure that this is showing up in US dollars simply by selecting the US dollar option, and we can do the same for commission. So once again, I'm just going to click on the commission USD column, and from the column type, I'm just going to make that show up in dollars too. Great. So there are a few different styles you can run with. I'm just going to space this out so it's a bit more readable for us. There we go. Okay, and wonderful. Now, another super useful thing you can do is not only create tables from your data, but also create graphs super easily. So I'm talking pie charts, bar charts, anything you really wish. So to do this, I'm actually just going to click off the table and using the same query, so making sure you are still on the get trades query, I'm just going to drag in a bar chart. So here we go. I've just dragged one in. Just going to move it around. Okay, so there we go. And now, so you can see the x-axis value is the timestamp, and I can also change this around to make more sense. So I'm just going to hide some of these. I'm going to hide these three in order to make the x-axis the timestamp and the y-axis the commission in US dollars. Okay, so there we go. We can see it. Of course, it's very small just because we have that very large commission one on that. Let's just make it a little bit darker so you can see it. And wonderful. So we've now plotted essentially the amount of commission that is made by day. Okay, and it was really painless. So that is another thing you can do with the data that we are getting from the get trades query. Okay, I'm just going to show you how to create another chart. This time, I'm just going to move this around a little bit. This time, let's make it a pie chart. So once again, all I'm going to have to do is change the data sets. This time, I'm just going to have the commission by US dollars, and I want to do it by broker. So to do this, I would simply get the value labels and select broker. And there we go. Now we can see exactly how much each broker is making, what percentage of the pie for the desk they are making. And of course, we can change the colors around a bit too. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, wonderful. This is really interactive. You can interact with pieces of the pie as well. All of these components come not just visually, but also with a bunch of extra cool features too. So it really is quite advanced in terms of handling data and transforming it into graphs. Okay, I'm just going to show you one more example that we can do that would really fit this trade dashboard. So I'm just going to use the bar chart again for this. And this time I'm going to actually select the x-axis to be the broker. Okay, so we know what percentage of the pie each broker is making. This time I want to see exactly how much commission the broker is making. Okay, so I can see that Annie Glover has made around 25k and she's made around 70% for the desk. Okay, 70% of the total for the desk. Wonderful. Okay, so this is looking pretty good, and all just from one Google Sheet at the moment. The next thing I am actually going to do is show you how you can now add more data to the Google Sheet. Okay, so we're displaying the data, but we want to not only read the data, we want to write data too. And to do this, I want to be able to add a trade, but from the platform. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's carry on. So to do this, I'm actually going to use a modal. So let's just go ahead and select the modal component. And I'm going to just drag it up here. Okay. For the button text, I'm actually going to change this to add a trade. And then let's just change the button color. Let's go with a red. And yeah. Okay, now that we have the pop-up working, the first thing I want to do is actually make this a form, because we're going to have to submit the form. So I'm just going to drag in the form component just like so. Okay, so that is done. We have created a form, and now it's going to maybe make this a bit smaller. Now we're going to have to drag in things into our form. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually just drag in some text, because this is where we're going to want to give some information about what kind of data goes into our trade essentially. So I'm just going to drag in some text to let the user know that this is for a ticket and this is going to be the buy side. Okay, so here's the text. The asterisks on the text mean that this is going to be in bold. I'm just going to get rid of this and write buy side, and then also get rid of the emoji, and perhaps let's make the background green. You can apply custom styling. I will be showing you how to do this, but for now just stick with me. This is something that I'll be showing you how to do later. Okay, so we have the buy side. The next thing we're going to do is just make the sell side too while we're here. So I'm just going to drag in another text component, and I'm just going to edit this to say sell side and also get rid of the emoji. And once again, let's make the background red. You'll notice the text is changing to be white to make this more readable. That is a feature that is built into the low-code platform. However, if you want to change this, as mentioned, the option to add your own custom CSS will also be available to you. I'll show you how to do this. Okay, now we have the buy side and the sell side. The first thing I want to do is start putting in some inputs. So we have, what is correspondent to the Google Sheet. So that means products, an entity, a timestamp, the volume, and so on. So the first thing we do is just put in a text input like so. Okay. I can also choose to position the writing at the top if I want. And I'm just going to give this the label of entity like so. I can also make this a required field, so just by ticking this little checkbox right here. Okay, and that is done. We have created our first input. This input is going to be for the entity that is going to have made the trade. Now, let's actually create a second one, because obviously I'm going to have a buy side and a sell side. Each one need an entity. So once again, I'm just going to make this go to the top instead of going to the left. And I'm going to make this a required field. Wonderful. So now that we have an entity for the buy side and an entity for the sell side, the next thing I'm going to do is actually have something for the product, because we're going to have to choose what kind of product this is to go on our table. So I'm going to choose to make this a drop down just so people can't enter whatever they wish. So I'm going to search for the drop down option. And once again, when we are here, we have a label, and then we also have the values. So at the moment, the values that appear are 1, 2, and 3. I want this to be products. So I'm just going to put in some standard products that you would see if you were trading the Brent Dubai crude. So I'm just going to put some in here for now. This is of course just for demonstration purposes. You can make this whatever you want, making sure it's an array of strings separated by commas. Okay, so we have August, September, October, November, December. I'm just going to copy all of that and I'm just going to paste it, and instead of Brent, I'm going to change this to Dubai first line crude. Okay, wonderful. And then perhaps let's have just some straight out futures. So, okay. Just going to change this from Brent first line to Brent crude future. Okay. I mean, yeah, that's fine. Again, this is just for, demonstration purposes. So now if I go here, I can select a product that is only from that list. So this is how you would do that. I'm just going to change this label to be product as well and make this a required field. Okay, wonderful. So now that is done, and I've shown you how you can do that. Of course, you can make your own. This is just for demonstration purposes. Let's actually do it for the other side too. Just going to check this works. So is required field. If I don't pick one, yes, a red thing shows up. Okay. Now that we have done that, I'm just going to stick it on the other side too. And there we go. Okay, wonderful. I mean, I think this is pretty neat. If I was still working, this sort of thing would be extremely useful and extremely time saving when it came to, keeping track of your trades. So the next thing we'll do is actually use a number input this time to put in the price of the product that was traded. So I'm just going to drag in a number input, and I'm just going to change the label to be price US dollars. Okay, price US dollars, and then I just want to put it at the top. Let's make it required field as well while we are here. Just going to copy it and put it on the other side too. Okay, so that is looking quite good. We've got some number inputs. I'm just going to copy it again because we also need to put in the volume traded. So I'm just going to use another number input for this, the volume in KB, and copy it to the other side, to the sell side too, because someone's buying this and someone's selling this. Okay, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to work with and you can see it a little bit better. And there we go. So now we've copied it. We have two things for the volume. We can also make sure that this is in currency. So I'm just going to format this as currency. So great, that makes a lot more sense. So now we know that whatever is being put into here will be the format of a currency. And for this one, well, we're not really going to do anything at the moment. Okay. Now I'm just going to copy this again as we want another input for the commission rate. So let's change the label to commission rate. And once again, I am just going to copy this using the copy command on my keyboard and move it to the sell side. Okay, so now each side has pretty much the same on it. And of course, I'm just going to change this to be top positions for all of them, just because I think it's a lot neater. And we can actually see what is on each label. For this one, it's not actually letting me go to the top. So, I mean, we could just get rid of the label. Maybe let's do that. I guess we don't need it if we can have, you know, like a placeholder. So yeah, maybe let's do that. I'm just going to work on how you can see this a little bit better. So I'm just actually going to move this down here. Okay, wonderful. So that is, I think that's a lot better for this video. Now you can see everything. Okay. So we've got a bunch of stuff. We're still not done yet. I still need to, I guess, calculate the exact amount of commission made and which broker made it. So to do this, I'm actually going to use a statistic. I'm just going to search for statistic and then just drag it and drop it here. There we go. Great. I'm just going to change this to be the title of commission. And we're going to do a little calculation here, okay? And just display it to the user, as well as use this to put into our Google Sheet later. So we've called this commission. Okay, I'm actually going to use, oops, I have misspelled commission. Okay, commission has two M's and two S's. So commission. Okay, I think that's fine. Right, to get the commission, I'm actually going to have to do a bit of a calculation. So let's do that in the value. I'm going to get up the syntax for Retool, so we need these two curly braces like so. And I'm going to grab whatever is the number input to, that's right, value. So whatever I put into there, multiplied by 1,000, and then also multiplied by the commission rate. So commission rate value. So whatever I put in that, multiply by the, hold on, that should be volume. So what is this? Yeah, okay, whatever the volume is, multiply by the commission. I'm just going to change this to a 4. Okay, and that should be the value. So now let's test it out. If I just fill these in, let's do that now. Okay, so it goes volume multiplied by commission rate, and that will give me the commission that I have made on this side of the ticket. Okay, so this is cool. I'm essentially just generating a number based on the inputs that have been put in. And let's just do the same on the other side. So I'm just going to copy this using the copy command on my keyboard. And I'm just going to change this here to be number input 3 and the commission rate for the buy side. Okay, so just change out these numbers. And now I'm just going to test this out. So let's put in the volume. Let's do 100 KB and make the commission rate 0.05. And great. That gives me 500. Not LBs though. Let's just make it, we don't need a suffix. Great. So nearly there. The next thing that I want to do for this ticket, so that's quite cool, right? We've sort of at least done one input based on some calculations. So we don't have to do this. Usually when I was a broker, we would have to, like do the calculation in our head or use a calculator. And this way we just calculate our commission for us. Okay, so we've got everything. And the last thing I want to do is actually pass through which broker did this trade. So for this, as we have, like a set amount of brokers that are working on this desk, I'm actually going to use a drop down. So I'm just going to select the drop down. I'm going to get rid of the label, okay, because we can just have, we can have a placeholder instead, so select broker. And we were actually meant to do that for above as well, so let's do that again for the I'm going to get rid of the label and just put, you know, like select product. And again, for this side too, select products and get rid of the label. Okay, cool. Okay, right. Now we don't want the brokers to be 1, 2, and 3, right? This is just default values. We want it to look like this. So I'm going to change the values. And who are our brokers? Well, we've got Annie Glover. We have David Astro. We have Jeremy Ling. And we have Sunny D. Okay. Yeah, cool. That's it. Wonderful. And once again, I'm just going to use my copy command to copy this and make another one for the bicep. Okay, great. So this is looking good. We have now completed our module. We have now completed a way for us to, I'm just going to maybe move this out a little bit better to make it look nicer. But we have now essentially completed a way to add trades to our table by using this little pop-up modal with required fields. Okay. The next thing we need to do is actually make something happen if we click submit. So at the moment, obviously nothing happens and all the fields that are required are giving us error messages. I need to essentially make a new query that instead of getting trades, will add a trade to our table. So to do this, I'm going to go back here, create new, just select the new resource query, and let's just rename this to add trade. Great. Making sure the resource is still the trades list. And then what I need to do is make the action type, and of course choose a spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet was trades. Let's do that for add trades. So select a sheet trades. And then, okay, this is looking good. And then I need to change the action type. So the action type, I want to be append data to spreadsheet, okay, because we want to add a new essentially line to our spreadsheet. So this is how we would do it. And the values to append, so this is going to be an array, and we need to add an array of objects. Just like we saw in the left sidebar, we need to keep the structure the same. So to this array, my first object is going to be a timestamp, just like in our table. And for the timestamp, the value is going to be just today's date. So this is a bit of JavaScript. I'm using a date object to essentially add today's exact date whenever we add a trade to the dashboard, which will then be sent to our Google Sheet. Okay? So new date is going to be the timestamp. Okay, if you know JavaScript, you know what this will return. If you don't, please do have a Google of the date object. And let's carry on. So I'm just going to make sure this is formatted correctly. Cool. The next thing that we need to add is the entity. And the entity, let's do the buy side first. Hold on, this is not, something's wrong here. I don't see why this should be wrong. Maybe let's just carry on and it will update. Okay, so let's focus on the buy side first. We're going to add the buy side first and then the sell side. So 2 lines to our spreadsheet essentially. So the entity is going to be the first text input component that we used. So up here, the entity is text input 1 because we're doing the buy side first. We're adding the buy side trade to our dashboard. Text input 1 value. Okay, so we've got the entity. The next thing we're going to do is product. So it's really easy. We're literally just finding the component on our dashboard and using its value. The next thing I'm going to do is, oh, actually we need a direction too. So we said there's going to be a buy side. I can just hard code this to be buy side because we don't need to select a direction. We should know that, you know, like if it's under the buy side, the green title, this is going to be a buy-side trade. Next, let's add the product. So just like we found the other component, this time I'm going to find the drop down, which is called select one. If we hover over it, it's the bit in the blue, and I'm going to get the value of that. The next thing I'm going to add is the price in US dollars, making sure, by the way, that these keys are the same as the headers of our columns in our Google Sheet table. And the price USD is going to be, once again, let's just hover over it, and we're going to get the value of whatever we put in this number input. Okay, hopefully this is making sense the more we go along. The next thing we do is the volume KB. So the volume KB is going to be, well, let's have a look at what component it is, and it's text input, number input 3, sorry. So number input 3 value. So great. Next we need to do the commission rate. So I'm just going to do commission rate. Hold on. How did I spell commission? Because I've been making loads of mistakes. Commission. Whoops. We have misspelled commission here. So commission here has a 1. So for the sake of it here, I'm just going to spell it the way I wrote it in my table, because as I mentioned, it has to be exact, has to be the same spelling. Otherwise this will not work. So commission rate, I'll change it later, but just bear with me for now. Sometimes I do think making mistakes like this is the easiest way of understanding how this is all working. Hopefully you see now that why this needs to be exact, because it needs to be exactly the same as the column title, like so. Commission spelled with 1 M. Okay, so we're gonna put, what are we gonna put in this column? Well, we're gonna put the, what is this? Number input 5 value. So number input 5 value. So whatever I put in this input, that is going to be my commission rate. Great. The next thing we need to do is get the commission USD, which I've misspelled here again. I clearly wasn't having a very good day with this word. Commission spelled with 2 M's and 1 S this time in US dollars. I promise I will fix this. Commission US dollars is going to be, well, we know this is going to be the statistic, right? It's going to be the thing that we figured out. So I'm going to go into statistic, and the statistic 2. So let's select statistic 2, and once again, value. Great. And the last thing we should do is just put the broker that did it. So broker, and then we need to go into the drop down. I believe there's a drop down, but let's just double check maybe. Hold on, it wasn't called drop down, was it? Drop down value. It's not defined. Okay, so that doesn't exist here. Let's just have a look. Okay, fine. Select for is not called drop down. Select for value. Wonderful. So now we have done everything for the buy side. If we ran this, it should essentially add a row to our table, but we need the sell side too. So, okay, sell side. So I'm just going to copy all of this that we've done so far, and we now need to adjust it for the sell side. So I'm going to copy it, paste it, and now I'm just going to change these to be this number. Direction is going to be sell. Product is going to be select 2. Price USD is going to be number input 2. Volume KB is going to be number input 4. This is going to be statistic 1 and select 3. Okay, great. So we've done it. I'm going to save this, get rid of this comma, we don't need it. Save this, and okay, I'm just going to now fix this because, you know, like, it's better to have everything correct. Okay, so we've changed that. In here, I'm going to get the trades again just to see if that has worked. Okay, so commission rate, good. It's messed up with our graphs, but we'll fix that a bit later. Okay, so now that we've fixed the spelling commission rate, we need to hook up our submit button. So to do this, we are going to have to create our first event handler. If I click on the submit button, an event handler has actually been generated for us. So I'm just going to click here to show you what is going to happen is I'm going to run the query add trade. It's selected add trade because we are currently on that query. And on submit, I'm going to add a trade. So on submit, essentially I'm going to run this query. I'm going to run the add trade query, okay, as soon as I press the submit button. Great. So that is looking good. I can also add confetti just for fun. Confetti, so that, you know, like when I press the submit, confetti gets thrown as well. And another thing I could do is also rerun the get trades query. So the previous query we wrote to get all the trades, I can run that query. So after we added the trade to the bottom two, we can run the get trades query again. Okay, so that we can actually see them in the browser itself. So that is looking good, I think. Let's test it out. So let's just make sure that we enter all of these. I'm going to put test, September. I'm just making this up really. I don't really know what September Brent Fastline price is at the moment. Let's say 65.55. And let's also put, 80.44. Make this up. Fine. Just put in some brokers and click submit. Woo! And confetti. We have run the add trades query. We're getting some errors. Why is it red? It hasn't been added. Why is this? Let's have a deeper dive into this. Okay, so that has not been added. It should appear at the bottom here. It has not. Why is this happening? Got it. Don't want that at the moment. Let's go back in here and have a look again at what values we're appending. Okay, we've got an error message. Commission. We did not correct commission spelling here. Okay, fine, fair enough. There we go. These error messages are super handy. I mean, already I know why this has not worked. And click save. Okay, so let's try it again. Add trade, submit. Whoosh. Okay, no errors now. Let's have a look. So that has not been added to the bottom, but let's see if it's been added to my Google Sheets. And it has. Wonderful. So we've added these trades. This is working. Woo! We've added the 2 new trades. We've broken a few things along the way, like the bar charts, but don't worry, it's a step-by-step process. Well, the get queries did not get run though. So the get trade query did not get run, however. So if I actually manually run this, you will see the new trades. So why is this not working? Let's try again. It could just be a bit too slow, as in we're adding and then we're getting, but the get is running before the add trade. No, this seems to be okay. Okay, well, there's another way to do this, which is actually probably better. We can also, I'm just going to change this for now. I think that big volume wasn't great. Okay, so we can, obviously that's, that time, no, it didn't work, no. Okay. So we can do this another way. I can actually make this run after the query runs, after the add trade query runs. So to do this, I would just click on the add trades query again, and on a success trigger, so after this query runs, get the trades, okay? So this is actually a bit more foolproof, and let's check it out. Add a trade. And then Let's just change it so we can see a little bit of a difference. I'm going to call this test new and test new. Click submit. Okay, let's see if that has worked. So now let's go to the last page, and wonderful. Okay, that has worked. We have done it. We have added a new trade and it's showing on our dashboard. Amazing. Woo! I'm really pleased with how this is looking. So cool, we've done this. I'm just going to change this to add a new trade. Okay. And now let's also, based on everything we have learned, we're going to do a bit of repetition and just make another modal using everything that we have learned so far. So I'm doing this, for muscle memory and also to make it a lot more realistic in the sort of trade dashboard that you would see at a brokerage, because you don't only have trades that have two sides, so a buy and sell side. You can also have someone just selling some Brent futures online. So I'm going to create a new pop-up modal, very similar to this one, but this time it's going to be a custom trade. Once again, it's just a pop-up modal. Maybe let's call this add custom trade. And then let's make it green. Okay. And this time I am going to allow the person to select a direction, and it's only going to be, not double side, it's going to be one side. So once again, I'm going to, well, actually we don't really have to make this. Okay, so let's just make this create a custom trade. Get rid of the emoji using the asterisk to make this bold, and then let's make it yellow because yellow is quite a neutral color. There we go. Okay, let's do it. The first thing we're going to do is just drop in an input. This input is going to be just a text input with a trade direction, in which we're going to enter either buy or sell. The next thing I'm going to do is just put another text input. This time it's going to be for the entity. So let's change this up to be entity, and let's put up some placeholder text of enter company name. Okay. So name, there we go, just make it capital. And now we've got the trade direction, got the entity. This time let's grab a drop down for the product. So this is going to be for what kind of product we want to select, essentially. Label it as product. And the drop down, well, I've already done this. So once again, I'm just going to get an array of strings separated by commas. Okay, so that is how we put in values. So there we go, we've done it. We put an array of strings separated by commas to signify the items in our dropdown. The next thing we'll do is actually put a number input. So let's drag that in here and give it the label of price USD. And I'm actually going to format this to be currency so that we can only put in numbers that have a currency format. The next thing I'm going to do is just copy this, so using the copy command, and I am going to use this to have my volume in KB unformatted, so just a standard format. Once we have that, and once again, just going to use my command to copy and paste another number input. This time, however, the label is going to say commission rate, because that is where I'm going to put the number value for my commission rate. And now that we have that, if you remember, the next thing we did is actually use the statistic component. So I'm dragging that in there and dropping it in here. And we are going to essentially use this to calculate our commission. So the total commission for this ticket based on, so we need to use this syntax of two curly braces to pick out an element. In this case, it's number input 8 and its value. Okay, so dot value, whatever the value of that input is, multiplied by 1,000 and multiplied by the commission rate, which is number input 9's value. That is how I have chosen to calculate my commission for this ticket. Okay, so let's just check this out. I'm going to put volume 100 KB and commission rate 0.05 and number 100 multiplied by 1,000 multiplied by 0.005 indeed gives me 500. 100. And the format of that is dollars. So this is looking good. It's calculating it correctly. Everything's looking wonderful. The next thing I'm going to do is actually use another drop down. So if you remember from the previous module we did, we actually had a drop down for the brokers. So once again, I'm just going to put broker, and once again, I'm just going to go back and copy it just to make it exactly the same, because we need to paste in the broker options. And once again, it's an array of strings followed by commas to essentially split them out as individual items. Okay, so we've done that. We've done everything here. The next thing we need to do, we didn't put it in a form, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's put in the form, and then let's just whack all these things in. So just move them in. We could have not really, you don't have to make this a form. You can just put a button, but this way is a better practice. Essentially, if you did the button, you could have just done the same thing, you know, attach an event to it, so like a trigger, but we're not going to. Okay, this is a much better way of doing this. So there's our form. Now let's hook up the submit button. So I'm just going to click on the submit button, and of course we need an event handler for this. So here we go. I'm going to say that if we submit the button, I want to run the query add trade, and I want that to trigger. However, this won't make sense, right? Because the add trade query will trigger the other modal, because we picked out all the different components for this. Okay, the add trade, even if I fill all these things out, will essentially use the not the custom trade options, but the previous modal that we built. This is not correct. We need to build a new query. So once again, I'm going to click new resource. And once again, let's rename this. I'm going to rename this to add custom trade. It's going to be pretty much the same as add trade. So the spreadsheet we need for this is trades. And here, action type, I'm going to say append data to a spreadsheet. So just like add trade, essentially. Oops, let's save this. Save. Just like add trade. However, the only difference is the values to append will be different. But we're going to use this as a template. So I'm just going to paste all this. Move this up so you can see it better. I'm going to delete this, I guess, second row, because that was a second row. And now we're going to append one row, and let's change these values up a bit. So timestamp new date, that'd be fine. That'd be today's date. Entity, well, I want to grab another text input this time. I want to grab text input 3's value. Okay, that's because it's this component that we need to grab. It's text input, 4 actually. Text input 4. Okay, so I'm just going to move these around a little bit. Text input 4, it's value, that's going to be the entity. Now direction is going to be, okay, we could actually make this, perhaps we should make this something else, text input 3. Perhaps we should be more strict and say, you know, it should just be a by, or it should just be a cell, rather than someone being able to enter whatever they want. So I'm going to use another option for this that is available to us, just be a bit more strict. I'm going to use this segmented control. So I'm going to grab that and just whack that in here. It really is that easy. And this time, I'm just going to delete this, move everything up again. There we go, whoops. Okay, so now we have this. Let's put the values as by and cell. Okay, and labels, I'm going to put by and cell as well. Okay, so there you go. And default value is going to be by. Wonderful. Now, we don't want label. So now, I'm going to get the segmented control 1 value. Okay? Great. Value. Wonderful. Cool. Let's carry on. Product is going to be select 5. The next one's going to be text input 7. So once again, I'm just going to be finding out, reading off the blue whenever I hover over each component. That is essentially the component's name. This is going to be number input 8. This is going to be number input 9. And then commission rate, that's fine. This is going to be statistic 3. So let's change that to a 3. And then we just need the broker, I believe. So this is a select. I'll just change the number on that to be a 6. Wonderful. And let's click save. Okay, let's test it out. We also need to, of course, make sure that the submit button is triggering the correct query. So we need to change this to add custom trade. And then once again, let's maybe send some confetti. Great. Now, if you remember from the previous thing, there's one more thing we need to do. And on success trigger, we need to get the trades again so they can see the new trades in our table. Wonderful. Now let's get to testing this out. Okay, so let's do it. I'm just going to put in some, I'm just going to move this down a bit. Click add custom trade. Just going to put test custom trade. Make this a sell product, and then just put in some random price, volume, let's say 200, commission rate 0.05. That is looking like the correct commission amount. And let's make the broker Ania Glover. Now I'm just going to click submit. The confetti goes off, and there we go. We have added our custom trade. It is one line this time. I can see it. So the get trades query has also ran once this add custom trade query has run. Wonderful. This is looking so fantastic. We've added a custom trade. We've added a, I guess, double-sided trade. This is looking great. One more thing to do, and that is integrate our Slack channel. Okay. Before we do this, let's actually fix these. As I said, when I reran the query and changed some of the column names, this actually broke. So I'm just going to change these. Let's perhaps give these a title. So commission by percentage, that is meant to be. And this one is meant to be a daily desk commission. Obviously it doesn't look like that now, but that's what it's meant to be. And this one, this was meant to be, how much each broker made. So perhaps let's call it commission in US dollar. Okay, cool. Now, so to do this, I'm just going to delete this, drag in a new bar chart. Now the x-axis, we need to make sure that that is getting the correct query. So get trades, get all the trades data. And now let's make sure that the x and y axis is correct. So I just want to use commission in US dollars, but let's do the x-axis first. So by broker, and then we want the commission US dollars. So let's hide these 3. Wonderful. Okay, so that one is fixed. We still need to fix those 2, but perhaps let's do the Slack integration first. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just use this form, just like that. Let's move this out the way. Okay. And let's create a new resource. So I'm just going to create a new resource. This time I'm going to actually go back to here and go back to my resources tab and create a completely new one. And then just use the, let's find Slack, because this has been pre-configured for us by Retool already. So I'm just going to find it wherever it is. I know it exists. There it is. Okay. Now, what should we call this resource just for our own knowledge in this app? I'm going to call it Slack API. Now we need to get a webhook to make this work. So to do this, let's go to Slack. An easy way to do is just click right here, create a Slack webhook. And I'm just going to sign in with Google. So I'm just going to click here. Okay, it looks like you're new to Slack. Create a new workplace. Create a new workplace. What's the name of your company? I'm just going to go Ania's demo. Next. What's your team working on it now? Retool. What should we call this? Low code course. Great. Who do you want to email? Let's skip this for now. Wonderful. And open this in Slack. So now if we go to Slack, there we go. I have created a workspace essentially, and there's no one in here. This is of course just for me at the moment. Now let's get to hooking this up to our platform. So for this, we need a webhook, right? So let's get to it. This was step 1. Now step 2 is the webhook to integrate the Slack channel with my platform. And just go back here, create a webhook, and there we go. Now that I have a channel, this is a lot easier. Choose a channel, low code course. So all my messages are going to go here and add incoming webhooks. So here's my webhook URL, literally a few steps to do this, super easy. Just whack that in there, and we don't want to create a new app. So let's go back to resources and then back to our trades dashboard. So we've added that new resource. Let's carry on. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is, what should we do first? I am going to just use some text. So I'm going to make a text area this time, not a text import. And then what should we call this? I'm going to call this create message. And then maybe let's get an emoji. I'm going to get a writing emoji for this. Looking cute. Maybe let's make it a little bit smaller. And you can also input images in here. So let's go ahead and just put Slack's logo in, just so everyone knows what this is. I'm just going to Google Slack logo for this. I'm just going to use one that's hosted online just for this tutorial. So I'm just going to copy one from free social media icons, copy image address, and then just put it in here like so. So there we go. We have our Slack logo from the internet. It is hosted online off the internet. We've just got it. Next thing I want to do is actually, I'm just going to grab the text again, and this is where we're going to display what we are going to send. So like a little preview. I'm going to call it Slack preview. Okay. And once again, let's whack in an emoji. I'm going to put in a little speech bubble emoji. Okay, looking very cute. Once again, the asterisks are there to make it the text bold. Okay. If I get rid of them, that is what it looks like. Okay, so with and without the little asterisks. So now I can use this, let's make a little container actually. I'm going to put a container in here. Just make it a little bit smaller and move the form up as well, because all these things are in a form currently. Let's move that down. And in here, let's change the background perhaps, so I can be really precise with the background, or I could just choose a pre-made one. It's up to us. Okay, so there we go. That's a bit lighter now. And in the Slack preview, I want to preview what I'm typing. So I'm going to grab the text again. Let's make it wider. And this time in the value, rather than just having some text, I am going to use this pre-written piece of code that I have. Okay, so this is some pre-written code. This isn't a coding course. This is essentially just some HTML that I'm not really going to go through. Hopefully you know your HTML. If not, please do some Googling at this point in time. Or you can just, pause this and just take this from me. Essentially, I've done some custom code, okay, which you will see styled in a bit. And I'm going to use the Retool syntax. So once again, the 2 curly braces to get whatever the value of my text area is. So text area dot value. Now, this means that whatever I type will show up in the container below. Before we move on, I'm going to show you how to add some custom CSS. So to do this, you just need to click on these 3 dots right here and click on the scripts thing and styling. And then just click on the CSS part to add custom CSS to this whole app. So here is my custom CSS. I'm just going to paste it. Once again, this is not really a coding course. This is just some custom CSS to style the divs and tags that I previously put in. I'm just going to save that. And there you go. The styling has been applied. Wonderful. Now, if I actually type some text into the create message, you will see that being previewed in my Slack preview component that I have custom built. Great, this is looking good. Let's perhaps also change the button color. Let's make it a bit more like Slack. I'm gonna give it purple. Awesome. So we've done this, and now of course we need to hook up the submit button. So for this, I need to make a new query. I'm going to add a new resource. And then I'm going to essentially search, we might need to refresh this. I need to search for the Slack resource that we just created. So here I'm going to go resource and search for Slack API. Great. So we have the Slack API. Now we just need to use our Retool syntax to post a message to the Slack channel we chose. So this is the message that's going to be sent. I'm going to write user, current user first name. So this is just essentially saying that whatever is going to be sent to Slack is going to have user ... and whoever's using it, so current user first name, this is going to return Ania because I'm the current user. And then let's have the message itself. So I'm going to go into the text area again and get the value. Okay. So that's our query. Let's save that. Let's also perhaps, so that's cool. If I press submit, at the moment, you'll see nothing's happening because we don't have an event handler. On submit, I need to get the query 4. Perhaps let's rename this. I'm going to rename this to send message. And now you'll see if I run this query, there you go. That is working. So there we go. There's our incoming message. If I run that query, that will work. So I'm just going to type another message in just to check this is working. Let's learn more Lookout. Okay. So now it still likes it. So that is good. Everything is working as it should. Wonderful. Okay. Let's carry on. So this is looking good. This is what our app will look like if we preview it. So I'm just going to preview it now. As you can see, this is what it will look like if you share the link with anyone. We have a table. We can also add trades via the modals, whether it's, a trade with 2 directions that will add 2 lines, or just a custom trade that will add 1 line to our table. Great. We have a few more things to do before moving on. I can, of course, also just add something here saying, this is Ania. This is current user first name. So that will bring back Ania as I am the current user and my first name is Ania. Or friend. I'm just going to get rid of that. Let's not have or friend. Let's just have my name dashboard. Okay, even though technically maybe we should have had or friend, because if there's no current user and first name, it will just say this is dashboard. But whatever, this is fine. Okay, I can also make this, we don't have to just use the little asterisks. I can use HTML in here too. So for example, I can use H1, or let's make this an H2 tag. And if I want to be more specific with my styling, there is of course the option to add more custom CSS right here. Okay, so you can really go to town on the styling. That is going to be completely up to you. Before finishing this, let's actually fix these two, I guess the bar chart and the pie chart. As we said, changing the table column names seems to have broke this. So once again, I'm just going to select this graph right here, and I am simply just going to, as the data source, I think probably the easiest thing to do is just delete this. And then once again, use the syntax, the Retool syntax to get to the trades and get all the data from the trades. Wonderful. So that is there. You can't really see it because it's very light. And we did add a trade with a huge amount of commission, which of course is just being very tall right now. There we go. So we've added a few of these. Wow. So that is why it's looking a bit different, a little bit bare. It's just because one has a very tall number. Okay. So once again, this is what it is looking like. Wonderful. Okay. Now let's go ahead and preview what this looks like on our custom made URL. And there we go. Here is our custom dashboard. Just one more to do, and that is the brokers, because I can see that's not reflecting correctly. So I'm just going to, once again, you get rid of this data source, type it in again. Okay, so get trades data. Let's hide the rest of these. Okay, and there we go. So that is looking way more correct, just based on the new trades that we added, which just had like a ridiculous volume. Okay, and that is it. Hopefully you've learned a lot in this first part of the tutorial. We have covered quite a lot. We've covered how to essentially use data from Google Sheets, and also learn how to integrate Slack API in order to create your own custom dashboard, and of course customize the CSS as well as a lot of other things too. Now that we've covered this, let's move on to working with REST APIs in the next section. I'll see you there. Okay, now in this section, we're going to learn how to build our own personal crypto app using the Coin API and Twilio API to send messages. So let's do it. The first thing I'm going to do is add a resource. I'm just going to click on resources here and create a new resource. This is going to be a REST API. So let's call this Coin API, just like that. And now I'm going to find the API. So this is the API I'm going to use for this tutorial. We're going to have to get a key for this so we can actually use this. So I'm just going to get a free API key. Click here, and to get my free API key, I'm just going to put in my email address, gmail.com, Ania, Kubo, developer, and get a free API key. So that should now be emailed to me. Let's check it out. And there we go. We have our API key. Please keep it safe. So I'm just going to copy this, and now in here, this is where we're going to have to put our API key. At the moment, I am just going to put it in the header as a string. Okay, so make sure that is a string, and then let's get to the documentation to see what we should use as the key for this API key. So I'm going to go back here. We don't need this anymore. And let's check out the API docs. I will be deactivating this key, so please do use your own. This will not be valid anymore at the time this tutorial goes live. So here we go. Here is everything that we need. There is a bunch of different data here. What I'm going to get for now, I'm just going to get the base URL. So we can use all of these endpoints in our app. And I'm literally just going to copy, let's copy the sandbox one actually. So sandbox, and I'm going to just put it here as the base URL. And then we need to find out what the key needs to go under. So let's just have a little scroll. There we go. So this is what we're going to have xcoin API key. I'm going to copy that. And once again, as a string, I'm just going to paste it in here. So that is looking good. This is all we really need in order to be able to communicate with the coin API. So I'm just going to click create resource. Great. And let's create an app using a coin API. So I'm going to call this crypto dashboard create app. Wonderful. So now we will see a query's already been made. We have a little reminder for us on how to use this base URL. That's really handy. Please read the HTTP docs coin API for more information on how to use this API. Thank you very much. So now that we have that done, let's go to creating a table that's going to list all the quotes for the cryptocurrencies. So to do this, I'm going to actually, I think we can shut this one down now. So I want to get the quotes. So I'm simply going to go here to get the correct endpoint. And I can use this data right here. So this is what I'm going to get back. If I use this get request, I will get back objects that look like this, that have, you know, a symbol, ID, exchange, time exchange, so on, an ask price, a bid price, and everything else that we need. So I'm just going to copy this, just like that, and then whack it in here. We don't need this extra one because we have the little dash here already. And now just to check this works, let's actually pick a symbol ID to filter by. So let's just say this one. Okay, so you'll see here that is now a URL parameter. And now we also need to put, well, that is correct, the xcoin API key here again in the headers. So I'm just going to get this and put it in here. We don't need to specify, we don't need to put it as a string because it automatically gets converted to a string for us. So now if we run this here, you will see the response, which at the moment isn't coming back with anything. Perhaps this needs to be a, Okay, well, let's just get all the currencies for now. And there we go. Here is our response. We have managed to successfully get all that data. So we've got the data, now let's put it in the app. So that is our first query done. We can of course rename it. Let's rename it to make this more usable. I'm going to call it quotes because that is what it is. It's just the quotes for all the prices. Okay, great. So now that we have that, I'm just going to perhaps make this a little bit smaller like so. And then let's just drag in a table. This is going to be super painless. Here is our table. And you will see that it's already managed to sort of decide that this is what we want. So it's just picked out the first query that we did. It's got the query here. So the query is quotes. We've just called it quotes. And it's got all the data from our quotes query. Okay, so I'm just going to move this around. So you can see we've got symbol ID, time exchange, time coin API, ask price, ask size, basically everything that we got in the response here. Wonderful. So that is very intuitive. We really didn't have to do much. I'm actually going to show you how you can personalize this table. So what if I don't really like the way that the API gave me all these keys? I don't want them as my table headers. So I can change them. I can simply go in here and call this symbol ID, just like that. And then maybe let's change all of these. Do we want the time exchange? We could just keep time coin API. So I can also hide this one. To do this, I can simply just click on this little I right here and it disappears. Time coin API. Let's also rename this time coin API. And then I can also, so this is quite cool, I can say that the column type is a date time, original time zone, which will change it to a date format for me. So that is pretty cool. Now the ask price, let's make that ask price like so. And then I'm actually going to change this to reflect a price more. So let's pick that from here. We could use float or we could use US dollars if we want, like so. It's totally up to us. Okay, so it could look like this if we wish. Now let's do the ask size. Oh yeah, if you click on these, it automatically filters by this column. That's quite cool. So we've got the ask price. Now let's do the ask size. Just like that. And then maybe let's make this a float. So I'm going to make it a float. Okay. So once again, that is looking good. Or you can make it a full integer. It's totally up to you. Okay. So we've done the ask size. Let's do the bid price now. Bid price. And then let's also make this US dollars. It would seem not many people are trading on the KuCoin spot. Now let's also do the bid size. So I'm just going to change that here to, want bid size. So I'm going to keep bid size. I'm just going to rename it. And once again, I'm going to make this a float. And then we should also probably have last trade. So I'm going to have last trade too. Now this is interesting because we're going to have to, this is an object, so we're going to have to learn how to work with that object because we don't want this to appear like this. We actually want to go into the object to get a value. So let's do that. So to do this, I would use the mapper and I'm going to use the keyword self so that it knows I'm talking about that particular component. And then I'm going to go into the object and pick out the time coin API. It's quite nice that these are auto-populating for me, the time coin API. So now if I look here, you will see that that is exactly what's been picked out for the last trade. I've essentially, let's have a look at the request and the response, the response. So I've gone, this is what was returned to me for last trade, and that's what I was trying to put in each cell. But I said, no, I want the last trade's time coin API. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, let's also perhaps format this to be a date. So date, let's say original time zone. Wonderful. Okay, so this is looking really good. We can of course also move them around. So perhaps maybe let's move the bid size, then the bid price. So the bid and the ask are, next to each other. And that is looking great. Wonderful. Now I can of course also personalize this further. If I want, I can add a color, so background color. For this, you can just type red or green, or you can be more specific and put in hex colors too. The choice is completely up to you. But I'm quite happy with this looking the way it is right now. It's already come with pagination for us, which is really useful. I just want to do one more thing, and that is add an option for us to be able to search. So essentially, we want to be able to filter out, so filter by the symbol ID. Okay, so I'm just going to do that up here. So to do this, I'm actually going to find a component that is a text input. So I'm just going to grab that and whack it here. I'm going to make it a little bit longer, and let's change the label to say search, like so. And then I'm going to actually leave a placeholder too. So for example, enter symbol ID. Okay, so we've done that. Of course, at the moment, it's not really linked up to anything. So that is our next job. Let's get into linking this up so that it works. To do this, I'm actually going to go back to my quote. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. So remember at the beginning, we tried to filter. So we used this because we were trying to filter by symbol ID. So I'm essentially going to bring that back in, but instead of filter ID like this, I am going to essentially, just going to get rid of that. So I'm going to use this syntax. I am going to find the text input one. So I'm literally finding this component. I'm reading the blue off it. So I know that this component is called text input one for this platform. And I'm just going to get the value. Okay. So now whatever I type into this is essentially going to be this. And now I just need to make this trigger on change. So we need an event handler for this. The event handler is going to be a change because we're not submitting anything. I just wanted to change as I type, and it's going to trigger the query, and that is going to be the quotes query. Okay. So that is the event that's going to trigger as soon as I start typing, like so. So I've just searched by symbol, and you will see all these symbols with BTC have been filtered. I can of course go, let's just maybe type Gemini Spot BTC SGT, Gemini Spot, and let's see if it's changing. Okay, so that is changing. It's got anything with Gemini Spot here now. Brilliant. This is looking really cool. Just gonna go, maybe it's changes back to BTC for now. Wonderful. Okay, so now we've got our quotes coming through and our search is working. Let's carry on. The next thing I want to do is just get all the main cryptocurrencies that I want to, I guess, monitor in another table right here. So let's go ahead and do that. For this, I'm actually going to make a new query, but using the same API. So let's use the resource query. I'm going to make this bigger for us. And this query, I'm just going to call currencies. We've got quotes, we've got currencies. And for this one, well, I just want to get a few currencies with their little images. So I know that this exists here because I've had a look at this before. The endpoint I want to get all, to essentially filter out specific cryptocurrencies that I want, but also include all their assets and stuff, is, let's have a look. Here we go. Assets, but also filtered by certain coins. So I'm going to grab this one. And I'm just going to whack it in here. So V1 assets, filter asset, and what shall we get? I want to get, well, let's get Bitcoin. Let's also get Ethereum maybe. I'm just going to put a few in here. Maybe. Let's go Dogecoin. CDI. Okay, so I'm literally just using the documentation here, and I know this is what is going to be returned. Okay. So that is what is going to happen. Let's save and run. Yes, we also need to put in the API key again. So once again, just in the header section, and what was this called? Oops. So paste that in here, save it, and then we also need this one, and save and run. Okay, so now if we look at the response, wonderful. Okay, so we're getting the Bitcoin, the Litecoin, the Tether coin, Doji coin, Ethereum, Binance coin, Cardano coin, and DAI. I don't really know what that one is, but it was on there, so I just put it in as well. Okay, so we filtered out just a few from the API. The next thing I want to do is use this ID coin to get an image. But first of all, let's just whack them in a table. So once again, I'm just going to drag a table across, super easy, and it's pretty much guessed that that's the one we want. I think it's because we are on it, so we're selected on it, so it naturally just goes to that one. It's getting the currencies query, and then getting the data from it. If you want to see more of these, what exactly these come back with, so here you see currencies, and that is the data, so we're getting all the currencies data, and then you can go further into each object in the data array too. So that is essentially just the response, but maybe a bit more workable in terms of being a developer and wanting to get the correct properties from the response. Okay, so that is, I just got that by clicking this left panel right here. I'm going to minimize it for now, but if you ever want to see it, it's just right there. Cool. So now we have our most popular, or the ones we chose, sorry, our chosen cryptos that we want to keep an eye on. Let's get to personalizing this table a bit more again. So for this one, I'm actually just going to, okay, yeah, let's keep the asset ID. I want that. That is fine. Type crypto, I mean, we sort of know that, so I'm going to get rid of that. I don't want this. I don't want this. I do want the name. Let's perhaps switch this around though. I'm going to put name. I actually don't want a bunch of this stuff. I really only care about the volume 1 day USD and the price. So just delete or hide, sorry. Delete's probably the wrong word. So let's use this one. Volume 1 day US dollar. And then let's change this to, of course, US dollar. Oh. And then the price USD. I'm just going to put price and then make sure that there's dollar. So, okay. And now the icon. I want the icon to be at the beginning. Okay. Great. So we've done that. Before I actually get to putting the images in using a, we're going to do a little bit of JavaScript for that. I'm actually going to now show you how to put in Twilio's API in order to send a text message to your friends and family from this platform. So I think, yeah, let's do it. So to do this, I'm actually going to go back to my resources page. And I'm going to create new. And this time, let's actually search for Twilio. So Twilio is one of the APIs that comes already sort of with Retool as a resource. You can, of course, you know, get in touch with them if there's something that's missing. But luckily Twilio is here, so let's just go ahead and click it. And I'm going to call this just Twilio API. Twilio 1L. Okay, so now let's go to Twilio. I don't really want this anymore for now. Let's go to Twilio. Just going to click here and sign up for a Twilio account so I can get a Twilio API. So Ania, go. And what is it asking us for? It's asking us for an account SID and an auth token. So let's go ahead and find that. And now I want to use the SMS service, and I'm just building, I guess, what's the most alerts and notifications. How do you want to do this? I don't know. With code or with minimal code? Let's do with minimal code. Okay, JavaScript. Get started. Okay, perfect. So we've got an account SID. I'm just going to take that and whack it in here. And then the auth token show. Once again, this won't be active, so please do use your own when doing this tutorial. These will not work anymore. And then just create resource. Wonderful. So that is it. Back to resources. I don't want to create a new app. So we have our Twilio API ready. Let's actually shut these down because we are done now with those. And let's go back here. And I'm just going to click import from query library. And then I'm just going to find the Twilio API. Wonderful. So we've done that. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually create a form. Okay. So this form is essentially where I am going to send text messages from. So let's go ahead and maybe make this a little bit nicer. So I can essentially drag items in here. I'm going to drag some text. And in here, I'm just going to say send a text quick. So using send a text quick. So this is to make it bold. And we don't need this anymore. Perhaps we'll put in an emoji though. Anyway, they are quite fun. So I'm going to put in a little mobile phone. And there we go. Wonderful. So we've got some text, and now let's actually put in some inputs. So I need the input because I need to know exactly who I'm going to text. So I'm going to maybe put in this number input. Let's use the number input. Maybe this won't really be the best one. No, let's not use this one. So I'm just going to delete that one. Let's just use the text input. Just because I don't want to select a number, I actually want to put in quite a long number. So let's put phone number here. Okay. You can, of course, you can style this up however you wish. You can position it like this. I think that looks maybe a little bit better. So we've got our phone number here. The next thing I want to do, let's make this. Does that look okay? I mean, you can go wild, okay? It's gonna be totally up to you how you want this to look. You can spend hours styling up. I don't want this to be about styling. I want it to be about, you know, getting the job done and then styling afterwards. So we've got that. The next thing I'm gonna do is just put in a text input below here, and this is gonna be for the actual message itself. So perhaps maybe there's a better one than this. Let's maybe use this different one. Okay, I'm going to delete that. You can use a bigger one as well. We can use a text area, which I think I prefer. So let's use the text area. And again, just put that at the top. And once again, let's maybe call this message. I can just spell message, and then enter value or enter text. It is up to you. Okay. So I think this is looking good. We can have this as a required field. So let's make this a required field. And then you can do a bunch of other stuff too, to really sort of personalize the whole thing. Okay, so now that we have that, maybe let's make this a little bit smaller now. Wonderful. So now let's get to hooking it up. So we're going to do this with these two values. So first off, I'm actually just going to change the color of this just because I can. So this is how you'll do something like that. We can change the button color to whatever color we wish. Now, so we have the Twilio API. Okay, so I essentially want to post to my Twilio API. So let's get the docs out again. So let's carry on with this. So we've got our CID, we've got our auto token. Let's get a trial number. So this is going to be our trial number. Choose this number. Okay, so this is now our new phone number. I'm just going to make a note of this. And done. Okay, so now that we have that, we need to figure out how we're going to use this in order to send text messages. So I'm going to get the quick start docs and then just go to Node.js. Twilio REST API. So this is the request that we're going to have to make. That makes sense. API operation. Oh, it's already done it for us. That's really handy. So I want to post. So this is for addresses. I just want the one for messages. So there's a lot in here, but I'm just impressed that Retool already had this. I pretty much didn't really need to read the messages at all. So messages JSON. Okay, got it. Okay, so now in here, where we already have the account SID, we've already done that part. So two is going to be the text input. So I'm going to grab text input 2. Once again, this is how we would do it in here. I'm going to grab text input 2 and get its value. And that's the 2. And then the body. So I'm just going to get the body of text area 1. Text area 1 value. Okay, and then the from. We're going to have a from, which isn't actually on here, but that's fine. We're going to add it now. So from, and then here's where I'm going to put my saved new phone number, because this is going to be my Twilio phone number. So just like that. Okay, and let's try it out. So I'm just going to save that. Let's rename this to send text. And I'm just going to put in my phone number into here as a test using the country code that I am in. Hello, me. And at the moment, the submit button isn't really hooked up, but if I run this, that should work. So query ran successfully. I'm just going to wait for my text. I got a text. Woo! Can you see that? Pretty cool. Okay. Nice, so we've done that, that works. Let's actually, instead of me running it here manually, I want it to run if I click the submit button. So let's click on the submit button here, and I'm just going to have to add an event listener, or an event handler, sorry, and it's going to be the query send text. That is correct. I'm happy with that. Send text trigger. And I can also do things like send confetti. So when the submit happens, I can just send some confetti. So let's try that again. Hello me, submit. Woo! Confetti's run. Confetti's, I guess, thrown at us once the buzzer has been clicked. Okay, cool. And once again, let's check if that's worked. Have I got a text? Wonderful. I've got another text. Amazing. So that is how we would link up the Twilio API and how we would link it up to this text input and this text input and make it run when we click the submit button. So this is looking pretty good. We've got our crypto dashboard. We can filter this table right here. We also have a separate table here for crypto coins that we specifically wanted to keep an eye on. And we can send a text using Twilio's API directly from our platform. Now, one last thing, we can, of course, personalize this loads. I can make a beautiful header if I want to. So you can just call this, I don't know, let's call it my crypto dashboard. It's completely up to you how you would like to do this. So perhaps, yeah, maybe let's style it up a little bit just while we are here. Let's put in some text. So again, if I want to use my current name, I can use current user and the first name. Or if that doesn't exist, it'll just say hello friend. That's exactly what this code is saying. I'm going to say, welcome Ania or friend to your crypto dashboard. So just like so. There we go. Great. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is actually use the icons here, and this is going to involve some, I guess, advanced coding. I say advanced, a little bit more advanced than what we're doing now. So what I want to do is essentially use these ID icons to get an image. So let's go ahead and do that now. The first thing I'm going to do is actually create a new query, resource query, using the Coin API. So let's go back to the Coin API documentation because I want to get the images. So Coin API, and then general here. Get all asset icons, that's what I want. I want the asset icons for this. So to do this, I would simply get the asset icons. There we go, here we go. I can get these, and I could just pass through an icon size too. So I'm going to copy this, mark that in here, and let's make them 32 pixels. So once again, however, I'm going to have to get the API key, and then just whack that in here too, and click save and run. Let's rename this query to images, just so it's more readable. And now the query comes back with all of our images, as well as the asset ID. So if I were just to grab this and then just paste it in the URL, you will get the asset. Wonderful. So we've got that. Now we need to essentially put the icon URL sort of in here based on the asset ID. So we're going to have to add some JavaScript to do this, to pass the images. So I'm just going to click here, and I'm actually going to create a custom column that I'm going to call icon. Okay, and in here, I'm just going to use an image tag like so. A closing image tag, and I'm going to use Lodash here. So the source for this is going to be, this is obviously for my Retool syntax. I'm going to use find. This isn't a JavaScript tutorial, so I'm just going to provide you with the code. I'm going to get the images, data, And then that's the first parameter. And the second parameter is going to be a function. So the function is going to have, I'm just going to pass through O for object, and then open up the curly braces and return O asset ID equals current row, so current row of this table, asset ID. Okay, so there we go, and then just do dot URL. Okay. Nice, and obviously let's make sure that this is a string. Okay, so now I'm just going to actually move this custom one right here, hide this icon, and we need to render this as pure HTML. And there we go. So now that we have rendered those as HTML, that has now worked. We're getting all the icons show up. Pretty neat. Okay. So now we can also preview this. So this is what our app will look like. And wonderful. Brilliant. I'm really happy with that. The header is sticky. Everything else is pretty responsive. And I can share this via this URL to whoever I wish. Awesome. So that is our crypto app. Hopefully you found this useful and can now create your own crypto apps too using the Coin API, Twilio API, and Retool. I'll see you in the next lesson. Okay, so in this part, we're going to learn how to create an invoice tracker using a GraphQL API, as well as learn how to embed videos into the platform. So let's do it. For this, I'm going to have to start a database. I like to use DataStax. So I'm just going to log in there. I'm going to click on DataStax, and I'm just going to click try for free. Okay. Now I've already created an account, so I'm just going to click here and just select an account to work with. Great. So when I'm here, I'm going to create a new database. And then I'm just going to get started, clicking the Get Started button. And what should we call our database? Let's call it Invoices. And the key space name is going to be Invoices. Key space, just making it super easy for you to follow along with. Okay, and then I'm going to select Europe because I'm in Europe and just create a database. Easy. Okay, so once we are here, we just have to wait for this status to connect. At the moment, it's pending. I'm probably going to cut this out, so... Okay, so the status is now active. Let's go ahead and click here. So this is important. We're going to have all of this information. But first, let's go ahead and connect to our GraphQL API. Now, this is essentially the URLs that we're going to use in order to hook up the GraphQL API to our platform. So I am just going to select this right here, and that's going to open up our playground. However, we need to get our API key or Cassandra token. So this is what it looks like. And we're going to have to put it in here in order to communicate with this and communicate with it in our Retool app too. So I'm just going to go to Settings and then select Admin User and generate the token. So here we go. Here is our token. I'm just going to copy that. Please do make a note of it somewhere just to make things easier. And to communicate with this playground, I would just click that like so. So that is looking good. That works. We've proven it works. So now let's go back to our Retool app. I'm just going to get rid of this. And let's create a resource. So this resource, create new, I'm going to search for the GraphQL API. And in the headers this time, I'm going to put this token as a string. And then here it's going to say Cassandra token. I'm just going to paste it like so. And then the URL, the base URL for this, well, it's not going to be this. It's actually going to be, so if you go back here to the documentation, GraphQL. It's going to be the invoice key space. But the first thing we need to do is actually create some data. Okay, so let's just put this in there for now. So this is the URL that we want to be able to interact with. So I'm just going to put that as the base URL like so. And then I'm just going to, let's name this GraphQL invoices and create resource. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's create an app. I'm going to call this invoice tracker, like so. So now we're connected to our database. We're actually connected to the database key space, okay, because we use the URL for the key space, but there's nothing in there yet. So there's two things we're going to do with this. We're actually going to make our app retrieve data, but also add data through the app too. Just to get started though, I'm just going to put some dummy data into our database first. So I'm going to do this using some mutations. So back here under the schema, I'm actually going to create a table. It's going to be a mutation. And this is going to be called invoices. Create a table for the invoices. Open up some, oops. Do you actually want that? So the key space name. Well, we know this is invoices. Key space. The table name is going to be, I'm just going to call it invoices. And we need to give some partition keys. I'm going to have it as this is going to be an ID. And the ID is actually going to be a string, so type basic text for the ID. Now the values that are going to be allowed are going to be name, company, which is also going to have a type of basic text. Space this out a little bit maybe. We're also going to have a value of the invoice, which is going to be a float. So the ID is essentially the invoice ID or reference. The company name is obviously just a company name string. The value is going to be the value of the invoice. We're also going to have a paid or not paid, which is going to be a Boolean. And we're going to have a timestamp. Which is actually going to be a text. There is like a timestamp, but I'm just going to do text just to make our lives a bit easier. Okay, and just click done. So we've run that. We've created a table. The table name is invoices, and it has an ID, a company, a value, a paid or not paid, and a timestamp. Wonderful. So we've created a table. Now let's get to adding an invoice into our table. So for this, we can now use the docs. I'm going to have to go to this URL again. Okay, so I'm just going to replace this with that URL, and I'm going to get the Cassandra token again so we can talk to our key space. And then I'm just going to write a mutation to add an invoice, so insert invoices, that's what we want. So it's going to be mutation, and then invoices, so we can go like invoice 1, for example, and then insert invoices. And now I'm just going to have the value. So what did we have in here again? Well, we had the ID. We can actually just see these here. So ID as a string. We're going to have invoice 01. And then we're also going to have company, which is also a string. Let's go Aunt Bessie's Cupcakes Limited. Just going to space this out so you can see. Paid, true, timestamp, let's leave that for now, value, and we'll have, this is a float, so let's do 200.01. Okay, and the timestamp, let's do today's timestamp. So we're going to use the ISO one. I'm just going to put it as a string, okay? And then let's make it maybe a month back, just like so. So there's one invoice. Let's see if that works. And then I'm just actually going to, so those are our values. And then let's just return the values ID if it works. Okay, so that has worked. We've added one invoice. While I'm here, let's just add a few. So I just make this 02. 02. This is going to be Motley Cruist. Paid, true. And then this, make this the 10th. The value is going to be for, I don't know, this much. Add that again. I'm not going to add a lot. I'm just going to do this for obviously like demonstration purposes. So maybe let's add like just one more for now. Who else can we have? Heist, Heracle, Limited, paid. Let's do this one as false. And then let's make this the 14th. The value is going to be for, cool. So we've got 3 invoices in there. Let's just do one more, just because I want to. And yeah, Heist Hierarchical ID again, maybe, and then any 5th. Okay, so we've got 4 invoices in our database at the moment. Let's see if we can get them into our app before we start adding stuff to our database from the app. So I'm going to go back here. Let's delete that one. We don't want this one. I'm going to create a new resource query. And this time I'm going to use the GraphQL API. And now I need to retrieve my data. So I know how to do this. If you want to use the documentation, just refer back to this. I need to get all the data, and that will look like this query, but we need to get all of them. So we could just write our own in the GraphQL playground and see if it works. So I'm just gonna comment that out for now and use the docs. So if I want to get all the invoices, it's going to be a query. And then invoices, ID, value, timestamp. What else did we have? Company. And then paid. Wonderful. So this is the correct query to get all 4 of our invoices. I'm just going to copy it and then just put it in. Now, the URL, it's asking me for the URL again. No worries though. I'm just going to copy this here. Seems like we didn't get the correct, we want this one. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to change this to be the one we pre-made. Okay, wonderful. You can, of course, just create one from here too, but as we've already made it, I'm going to use this one right here. And just click Save and Run. And great. So we now have all our 4 invoices ready to use for our app. So the nice thing about this here is you can actually see the queries and mutations available to you. So it's taken them directly from the docs in the playground that have been generated for us. Great. So now that we have that, I'm just going to actually delete this. And then let's make a new table, but using this new query that we just have. Okay, so I'm going to rename this to something. Let's call this GraphQL invoices. Okay, so now instead of this data like this, so this is some like default data, I don't want this. We're going to have to use our query. So we're going to get the GraphQL invoices data just like that. And now this is a great time for using this because that's obviously not working. That's not enough. We need to get the data, but then we also need to get the invoices, and then we also need to get the values. So I'm going to do invoices and then values. And wonderful. So we now have, thanks to our little left sidebar, we now have all the 4 invoices in our dashboard that we need. Great. Just going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so let's carry on. Once again, maybe let's do some personalization. So I'm going to change this to invoice reference just to be super clear about what that is. This value, well, I think value should be fine, but maybe let's make it US dollars. So I'm just going to choose dollars. And the timestamp, I'm just going to change this maybe to the date. So I'm just going to change this to date and then use the date original time zone to change that into a date format, which is easier for us to read. Company, I'm happy with company. Maybe let's just make it like a capital C. And this paid. So I can change this to a checkbox. Great. And now these are the ones that paid and these are the ones that aren't paid. But we want to be able to edit this, right? So we'll do that in a bit. Just going to maybe make this smaller again. Before we move on, I'm actually just going to show you how to create headers that aren't, I guess, tied to the top. So to do that, obviously we're in the header now. That is not correct. I'm going to move this down to the main section. I don't really want anything in the header this time. because I don't want the header to essentially appear on the published app. So by leaving it blank, that's exactly what will happen. So this time I'm going to actually just make a container. Make around this big, and I can change the color of this container if I wish. I can make it like this greeny color. Oops, it's greeny color. Cool. And then in here, I'm just going to essentially put in maybe like an invoice tracker. So I want a title. Let's put in a title. And as the value, I could just use HTML like this and put invoice tracker. Okay, and that will work too. Invoice. And then maybe let's put some more text here. Hello, Ania, or friend. This is your custom invoice tracker. I mean, there's really a bunch of stuff we can do. We can add an image. If we want to put in a little image of an invoice. So then I can just simply select this. And then I actually have some images on my imager, which I like to store. So I'm just going to use that. Okay, so that is an image from my imager. And I'm just going to replace that URL like so. So we've now got a title. This is what it looks like if you preview the app and you want to share it via the URL. So you see the other header is now gone. That is the main header. Okay, let's go back to editing the app. Now, we can actually create things super easily just by dragging and dropping charts. So if I want to create a chart, I would simply drop this in here, and then it's going to get my GraphQL invoice data. Now, we can be really specific about what kind of data we want to feed into this graph. So let's do it. Once again, going into data is not enough. We need to go into the invoices and get the values. Okay, so just like for the table, we need to be a bit more precise. So now it's done it by invoice and value. However, what if we don't want this? What if we want to do it by value and date? So we can easily do that. I would simply have to just change the x-axis values. So at the moment it's ID, I can choose timestamp. And it really is that easy, okay? So I can put value here instead. And at the bottom, I could put date, okay? Obviously, oops. I might have to make that a little bit bigger in order to see that in a nicer way. Okay. So we've now created a graph, so let us know what days we made the most money on. You can edit this way further, like say I want to change the color of this. I can of course do that too. Wonderful. So the next thing I want to do is actually also maybe create a pie chart. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you how to create a pie chart. Grab that here, and this time I'm going to just select pie chart. Once again, I need to go into the invoices, values, and great. Again, if I don't want this to do it by invoice, by ID, I can change it up. So to do this, maybe again, let's do this by, okay, I want to change the colors though. So I could just go around and change a bunch of colors if I wish. Again, we're not gonna be splitting it by these. So let's change that. Let's do it by paid or not paid. So the green is how many haven't paid for invoices, and this is how many have been paid. So that's quite a good statistic. I think that's quite a good one to keep there. And I could also do things like put these in containers. So let's maybe do that just to make it look a bit nicer. So I'm going to grab a container. I'm going to stick this in the container. Okay. And now I can put a title or just some text that will look like it's part of the same container. So if I do this and I just put, let's make this maybe an H3 tag this time. Paid versus unpaid. And then maybe just make sure that it's in the middle. Okay, cool. We can, of course, put more things in this container if we wish. So maybe let's go ahead and do that. It's totally up to you. We can even do, whoops. We can even put in another graph, maybe to show how many clients have given the most money. So once again, we would need to go into the data invoices values to get that data. And this time, let's do it by company. So now we can see which company has essentially given us the most money. And again, maybe let's change that to a different color. Wonderful. Okay, so this is starting to shape up really nicely. Maybe let's move that a bit further. Oops, down here. Just so we have a bit more space for these things. We don't need to squish them all up. For example, I actually want to put a video up here. So I'm just going to make some space for that to happen. Let's give this a title too, so I can do invoices by value. Maybe let's get rid of this one and then also give this one a title. So this should be paid versus unpaid versus paid versus unpaid. Okay. I'm going to stick this table up here. Move this container down a bit. And just elongate that, just in case we get more invoices coming through. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how you can also embed videos if you wish. So for this, I'm just going to maybe, let's also give it a title. Have you done your tax return? So sort of like a reminder if you're managing these platforms, right? And a lot of people are using them. You might want to remind them to do something that is important. So have you done your tax return? And then maybe let's I don't know what we want to do with this. I actually don't like the way this looks, so let's get rid of that. And I'm going to use a text instead. So I'm going to put some text in. just like so. And then make it centered. Let's make this like an H, maybe just a paragraph. Let's have a play around. You can, of course, edit these even more. That's the beauty of this low-code platform. Okay, so have you done your tax return? And then let's put in a video. So to add a video, I would simply just drag this in here. So I'm just going to put it in here. And I'm just going to, I mean, yeah, that's a great video, but maybe you should do something that is to do with taxes. So you can obviously put your own video. I'm just going to use one of YouTube, tax return US, just because we are dealing with dollars. So let's just give a video on that. This is from 2020, but I mean, I know we're in 2021, but I'm just gonna use this one just so you can see what that, looks like. You need to get this, get the URL, and just put it in there. Okay, wonderful. So this is looking really good. Let's preview what this looks like on the app. Okay, so this is what you would look like. It would look like to anyone that you shared it with. Looking awesome, very minimal. We did very minimal stuff to it. You can of course style this up as much as you want. All the components come already pre-made. So you can style them up with just by changing colors or text, or you can go that little bit further by changing the CSS just like we did in the first video. Okay, one more thing to do, and that is I'm going to show you how to add an invoice and also update an invoice. Let's get things going by creating a new resource query. This time, I'm just going to make this bigger. So this time we need to figure out a way to actually add data to our database. So to do this, let's first off practice in our playground. So I'm just going to comment this out and then write a mutation using the docs provided in order to insert a new invoice. So I'm just going to essentially use this docs to help me. We are going to be writing a mutation. If you're not super well versed in GraphQL, I would recommend, of course, doing a tutorial previously on it, as this is not a GraphQL tutorial. This is a low-code tutorial for those, who already have some GraphQL knowledge. But of course, please don't let that stop you. Let's carry on. So for this mutation to create a new invoice, I would simply need to create a mutation, which is going to look like this. This invoice is going to be 05, and I'm just going to put insert invoices, and in here the values that I need to essentially create my invoice. So the value for this is going to be ID invoice 005 as a string, and then I'm going to have the float of 10.01, a timestamp, which I'm just going to use as a string just to make our lives a lot easier. So I'm just going to use this format here, and perhaps let's change things up a little bit. Maybe let's just change this to 15. Okay, just to mix it up a bit. So we've got the ID, we've got the value, we've got the timestamp. Next we need company and paid. So let's say a company, let's write company, and then of course this is going to be a string. So I'm just going to put, let's put Ania's, I don't know, abacuses, there we go, limited. Ania's abacuses limited, fine. Is that how you spell abacuses? Oh, I don't even know. Ania's anteater mittens limited. Okay, let's move on. And paid, this is going to be a Boolean, as we said, and I'm going to say false. Okay, so this is how I would expect the mutation would look like if I was to create a new one, but let's check it out. So let's go ahead and run it. Validation error, subselection requires type. Set invoices. All right, okay, yeah, we need to return something. So let's just return some values, and I'm just going to return an ID just to see if it works. Okay, wonderful. And that has worked. So we know this is the mutation we need, so let's grab it and use it. So I'm just going to go back to, I'm going to just copy this actually first. Back to here, and on this query, I'm just going to paste this in here like so. Okay, we know this is the mutation, we know this works, but we now need to replace all the ID, the value, the timestamp, the company, and paid with stuff from our platform. Okay, so for this, maybe let's just check it works from this platform actually here too. Let's change this to invoice 6. Invoice 6. Let's change the value. I'm going to change the timestamp. And let's just save this and run it just to check again. Okay, that has worked. Our response is, our query has run successfully. We've got a response. So this query works. Let's rename this to add invoice to make it more readable. Okay. And now let's get to replacing all the values with stuff from our platform. So how are we going to do this? We need to replace all these values. We'll probably make a modal. We're going to have an ID. This is a string, as we said. It has to be a string. Okay, so just like that. And I'm going to replace whatever we pass through this as the ID. Next, we need the company. And the company is also going to be a string. So let's replace whatever we pass through here as the company. Great, we've got the ID, we've got the company. Let's do the timestamp next. And this is also going to be a string. We've chosen this to be a string just for this demo. And there we go, timestamp. Okay, now let's move on to the value. The value is going to be a float, remember. So we're going to have to put float for that. And then we're going to just grab the value and replace it here. So whatever we pass through the value is going to be the value. And that's it. Oh no, we also need to do paid. And paid is going to be a Boolean. And then we're going to replace paid with paid. Wonderful. And this I'm just going to have as ID. It doesn't really matter. Okay. Great, so we are sort of there. Now our variables have generated for us below based on what we have just written most recently. So now I think it's time to essentially create our modal. Okay, so to create a new invoice, I am gonna have to, just like we did, if you remember, in the first tutorial with creating trades, we're going to do the same. So let's grab our, not button, we need a modal, drag it down here. Let's perhaps rename this to add invoice, invoice, okay. And now, give it maybe, do we want to give it a, let's change the button to be red. Why not? Or maybe green. Green's less angry. Okay, so we've got our modal. Let's start dragging stuff into the modal. So for this, I am going to essentially put in all the inputs that we need to create an invoice. So this would include everything we have just, I guess, stated are our variables. So let's do our first one. I'm going to drag in a text input, and then I'm going to put a placeholder of enter invoice reference. This is going to be essentially the ID of the invoice. Okay, so there we go, invoice reference. The next thing we need is, this time, again, let's actually have a text input, And then this is going to be, let's make this the company. So label company name. And then let's have another text input for the timestamp. Or actually, no, let's not have that. Let's actually make a date selection for this. So I'm going to change this to, let's change this to invoice amount. Oh, no, let's make this, let's get rid of this actually and use a number input instead. Let's get the number input this time. I'm just going to drag it in here. Let's change the label. Let's make the label say invoice amount. Great. And I'm just going to delete this using my keyboard commands. Okay, so that is now gone. So we have the invoice reference, we have the company name, we have the invoice amount. What else do we need? We need the, actually, there's another one we can use. Okay, let's use the currency one. So I'm just going to drag that in here. And once again, invoice amount. And then once again, use my keyboard to delete that one. So we've now got a currency one that's formatted to take currency. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. The numbers now will come in currency format. Wonderful. Okay. Now we need to, let's pick the date time picker. So I'm just going to search date picker and grab that and just whack it in to here. Okay, just like that. And now we have a date selector. So I'm going to use this for my timestamp essentially. Let's carry on. The next thing I need to do is the paid or not paid. So as this is a Boolean, I'm simply going to look for a checkbox. So I'm going to use this right here and just write paid question mark. Easy. So that is now it. Let's maybe add some text to make it really obvious to the user what this is for. I'm just going to drag that in and add a new invoice. There we go, add a new invoice. Just as a title right here. It doesn't look super great. Of course, we can edit it. I can center this if I want, just to make things look a lot nicer. So there we go. Cool. Just going to move these down a little bit just to make it a little bit more spaced out and just, I think, look better in general. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is actually make something happen once this is filled out. And for this, I'm going to use a button. In the previous tutorials, I did make a form. In this one, I'm going to show you how to do without a form. So I'm just going to use a button instead to essentially trigger a query if all the values are filled out. So let's go back in here, and now that we have our variables, I'm going to use the Retool syntax to pick out components and their values as the variables. So for the ID, well, we know that the text input one here, the value is going to be the ID of the invoice. So I'm going to grab text input one value. Okay, so you'll see the blue text showing up. That is the component's name. Okay. Next, we do the company. So this is going to be text input 2's value. The timestamp, which is going to be the number input value. Okay. Or I think it is number input value. Maybe it's not number input. Number input. One is not defined. Okay, so let's go back here and just double check that. No, that is the invoice type. Number input 2 value is the value of the invoice. Okay, and this is date picker 1. Fine. So date picker 1 is going to be the timestamp. Let's cut that out, sorry, and put it under value. And this is going to be date picker, yeah, that's the one, date time picker. Let's format to string. because we did say that the timestamp needs to be a string. Cool. And finally, let's get the little checkbox. So it's just checkbox 1, as you saw by the blue little writing. Great. Okay. So we've done it. We have picked out all the variables that we need based on the input values. And now we just need to hook up the button to trigger this query. So essentially, because we are on the query already add invoice, this is sort of done for us. The query is add invoice. And if we click the button, this will trigger the query. Okay? Great. And just because I like it, I'm going to put some confetti here too, if we click the button. Okay, so now let's save this and test it out. Invoice reference. Let's go ahead and put, okay, so that's ran, but obviously that we didn't add anything because there's nothing in here. So let's put invoice 07, company name. I'm going to put Tony's turtlenecks. Limited, invoice amount 223, and let's pick a date. Sure, there we go, and just select paid and submit. So we have just submitted it. We have added an invoice, then that seems to have worked. Awesome, query ran successfully, but we won't see it in our platform, okay? This is because we need to run another query after all this is done. We can do it. I'll show you how we can do it here in the event handlers. So once we click this button, we essentially send an invoice. We create a new invoice, but I can also ask it to get all my invoices again. So I'm going to run the GraphQL invoices query that we previously wrote. So if we click it, it will add an invoice, but also get all the invoices. So let's test that out. Let's add another invoice, 08. I'm just going to change the price again and just change the date and click submit. So now you will see here, amazing, invoice 8 and invoice 7 are now visible in my table because the GraphQL invoices query has run. If you remember from my first tutorial, you can also do it on the query itself. So after the query has ran successfully, it is totally up to you. Okay, whichever one works best for what you are making at that moment in time. Okay, so this is looking fantastic. I'm really pleased with how far we have gotten. We have been able to get data from our database, but we're also now adding data to our database from the platform itself. Great. And finally, I'm going to show you how to update an invoice. So for this, I am once again going to create a new query. Let's just go here, resource query, and let's rename this to update invoice, just to be super clear about what we are doing. Now, I'm just going to save that, and I'm actually going to just copy this mutation because essentially to update an invoice, we have this mutation right here. I'm just going to paste that, and then I'm just going to change this to say update invoice instead of insert invoice as per the GraphQL Playground documentation. Okay, so it's exactly the same apart from we are updating an invoice, not adding one. And now we need to actually pick out the correct components what for this. So I want to pick out whatever row I interact with. So to do this, I'm going to grab the table 1. I'm going to use something called record update to do this. The record update is actually a property of the table. Please feel free to mess around with it. It might seem quite complex for now, as it's probably not something you've come across before, but just know that it's a property of the table to update rows. And just pass through a 0 to make sure that we are on the first item of the array, and grab the ID of whatever row we are in, okay? And do the same for this. Whatever row we are in, we want to grab the company. And whatever row we are in, we want to grab the timestamp. And whatever row we're in, we want to grab the value. I'm also going to pass float the value just to make sure that it's accepted in case anything goes wrong. I just want to wrap it in a pass float, as this has to be a float value. And paid, again, let's, whatever row we are in, we are grabbing the paid value. Okay, so that is it. Let's check it out. I'm not sure why it's red. Maybe when we save this, it will go away, but I am confident that this is the correct code. Okay, now one more thing. We actually need to enable editing for all of these. So enable, 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 enable. Great, and now we just need an event handler. So this time I'm just going to choose the change option and then trigger update invoices. Okay, so let's run this. I'm just going to minimize this, click save, and now we need to do one more thing. Once we update the invoice, we also need to run the GraphQL invoices query to refetch all the invoices. So I'm going to do that on success. So after the query has run and has been successful, I want to get all the invoices again. So now let's try it out. I'm just going to change this and save changes. And great. So that has worked. That is updated. Wonderful. Everything is looking good. Okay, and we can see here the query has run successfully. Amazing. Okay, and it's picked out invoice 3 because that is the invoice that we're on. Wonderful. Now I could rename this to, get invoices. It would make a lot more sense, as that's what we are doing, and will make much more sense with what I've written below. So add invoices and update invoice. That would be better. But then you'd have to change that everywhere you've used it in the app. So for now, I'm just going to get rid of it and just keep it as GraphQL invoices for now. Okay, wonderful. And let's check our app. So this is what our app looks like. It is now finished. If I interact with one of these and save the change, you will see that that has worked. Everything is looking good. Amazing. Okay, and it's also updating. All the graphs are dependent on this data, so the bar charts and the pie charts too. Okay, so I hope that video was useful. We have now completed 3 low-code solutions, all very different, all practicing a lot of different APIs and a lot of different techniques. So hopefully there was a lot for you to take away from this course. Next up, where to go next? Okay, so hopefully you've learned a lot by building 3 completely different financial apps. I try to make each tutorial very different to really sort of maximize your potential for gaining knowledge. Now, if you're not particularly into financial apps, there's a bunch of other stuff you can build too. If you go to the Retool site, you can actually see a bunch of different templates that you can click on in order to get coding straight away, using them as a template. Some great examples are a custom CRM, a admin panel, a Stripe refund tool. So you can imagine you're just working at a maybe small business and you need to figure out a way to allow everyone on the team to issue refunds quickly. You can build a Stripe refund tool that looks like this. Other things you can build are an S3 file exporter, a GitHub PR dashboard, a Firebase admin panel, a customer success panel, customer support tools, inventory management, an image annotator, a machine learning image labeler, and so much more. The potential for this is really quite large, and I hope you can have a go at creating your own dashboards today. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.